Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. This is the first session in our four-part iGear and Ignition webinar series, From Alert to Action, closing the loop with Ignition and Squeaks. I'm Brooks Corfidge, Sales and Integrator Program Lead, and joined today by Celine and Banasor, Director of Customer Success. Across this series, we'll show how Ignition and Squeaks work together to extend alarm visibility, drive action, and accelerate response time. Together, these platforms keep teams connected, improve accountability, and reduce overall downtime. We will have a Q&A at the end. Feel free to drop questions into the Q&A box at any time. Your questions will be hidden, though, from other attendees for your privacy, but we'll be sure to make sure we answer all of these live. If we don't get to your question, I'll follow up afterwards individually. In manufacturing, every second counts. A single minute of unplanned downtime can cost tens of thousands of dollars. In some industries like automotive, it can exceed $30,000 per minute. And most of that loss, it happens because critical events are not managed effectively. Here on the slide, you'll see an example of a plant floor layout, like a manufacturing plant. Critical events can come from any number of people or data sources. And for today, an example is alarms in ignition can be triggered or populated from a machine dropping out of automatic, a person calling for parts through a button on an HMI, or a KPI dropping below goal. Outside of ignition, these can come from your MES, ERP, and maintenance systems, just to name a few. Ignition does an excellent job of allowing users to define alarms and understand when the alarms and events are detected and resolved. But the question is what happened in between, from the alarm being detected to when it was resolved. With today's communications tools alone, alerts get delayed or missed. Accountability is sometimes unclear, and there's no consistent record of who responded, how long it took, or what actions were actually taken to resolve that said issue. That lack of clarity between detection and resolution leads to more downtime, more confusion, and more cost. And that's exactly why we created SQUEAKS, a critical event management platform designed to work alongside Ignition to bring this to light. The use case we're highlighting today comes from one of our manufacturing customers who integrates SQUEAKS with Ignition. SQUEAKS extends visibility into what happens after the alarm is detected in ignition. So who responded, how quickly, and what actions were actually taken to get to the point where the issue was resolved. By capturing and driving that resolution process, SQUEAKS shortens the time to respond, resolve, and review every event that is happening in your plant, enabling teams to act with speed and clarity. The result is less downtime, more control, and money saved.
So in the use case that we'll be covering today, our customer integrates SQUEAKS with Ignition through the Ignition alarm pipelines in this use case. So in their Ignition application, they have various different tags that may be reading in values from sensors, from PLCs, from databases, machines, and various other data sources. And when those alarm or tag values reach above or below a certain threshold or equal a certain value, they want that to generate an alarm. So they create an alarm pipeline. And within that alarm pipeline, what they do to integrate the Ignition alarm with SQUEAKS is they create a script that can be a Python script that's essentially creating an HTTP request to the SQUEAKS REST API. So in their case, SQUEAKS is hosted on premise. You can also host SQUEAKS on a private cloud VM. And with that, SQUEAKS has a very open REST API. So you're able to post information to SQUEAKS and post those alarms as new critical events within the platform. You can also get data from SQUEAKS that you may need to pull back into Ignition. And we'll see examples of both today. So to meet the demands of modern manufacturing, in our customer use case with integrating Ignition with SQUEAKS, Ignition does a great job, as Brooks touched on earlier, of understanding when the alarm is detected and understanding when the alarm is resolved. But in those steps of really filling in that gap in between of who took ownership, what did they do to resolve the issue, and everything in between, we're going to first start with the respond aspect of SQUEAKS in the critical event management platform. So in today's work environment, when you do have alarms in Ignition, again, Ignition does a great job of getting that alarm out by maybe sometimes means of SMS text message, maybe email. It may be displayed on an HMI, on an and-on display, for example, or even a stack light. The challenge with this is sometimes this can be one directional. So the alert's getting out, but you don't really know, did the right people see it? How long did it take them to see that particular alert? And did they respond to it within an efficient manner or at all? So that's really where SQUEAKS comes into play. First, it's going to extend the alarm visibility for your Ignition alarms. So immediately when those Ignition alarms occur, it's going to automate those notifications to the SQUEAKS mobile applications that can be run on iOS or Android devices, for example. So whether that's a mobile device, whether that's a tablet, whether that's a smartwatch, for example. And SQUEAKS also has a Microsoft Teams app where you can receive those notifications from Ignition into Microsoft Teams as well. But beyond that, you want to make sure to eliminate the noise and target the right people. So you want to make sure when those alarms are occurring, how do you ensure that only the right people are notified so that they're only receiving notifications that are important to them? And this can be accomplished by, within the SQUEAKS platform, setting up different teams that are maybe tuned into specific types of alarms. Even you can drill it down to specific keywords or tags where they're only going to be notified on events that are important to them. And then lastly, you want to make sure that you're accelerating the response times. So with SQUEAKS, to build on to making it more than just a one-directional type of notification, you're able to attach a customizable workflow that the users and team members can interact with directly within the notification so that they can easily take ownership, but also be able to understand the steps to take next. And if they don't respond within a given amount of time, you can set up automatic time-based escalation rules to ensure that it automatically escalates to the next person up if they don't respond within that given amount of time to resolve the issue faster. So in this example, you'll see from the use case in front of you, on the left-hand side, you have an Ignition HMI. In the middle, you have a SQUEAKS Android or iOS app that's running on a cell phone in this case. And on the right-hand side, you have the SQUEAKS Teams app that's running on a laptop. And what you'll see here is when a machine overcycle fault is triggered in Ignition, that's automatically going to push a notification to the SQUEAKS mobile app that you see in the middle, as well as the SQUEAKS Teams app that you see on the right-hand side. So they're immediately getting a notification, targeting the right people, telling them exactly what type of alarm is occurring, where it's occurring at. And you also can see a little bit of that workflow action bar where someone can say, got it, and take ownership of that. And as you look at the timeline on the bottom of the view, you can see where that reduces the response time in comparison to today's response process, because those alerts are notifying the right people instantly on various different devices. The next step is going to be the resolve process. So when you have various different alarms today, how do you know, or are you able to track who took ownership of it? What steps did they take to resolve that issue? Is that a streamlined process? When they resolve specific type of alarms or get things back up and running, for example, how do you ensure that it's the same structured process each time so that you can reduce downtime and ultimately reduce cost? So starting with that, SQUEAKS as a critical event management platform, in addition to Ignition, is able to provide you the opportunity to create structured problem-solving workflows that give team members step-by-step guidance on how to resolve the alarm. So when the alarm occurs, what are the steps that the user needs to go through in order to resolve the issue? And they're able to interact with that directly within the notification, but those workflows are very, very easy to set up within the SQUEAKS UI, so they do not require any additional development or coding, for example. From there, you can automatically embed media into the notification. And some of our customers will actually call this training on demand. So if you have, for particular types of alarms, different problem resolution texts, maybe training guides, maybe electrical drawings, or training videos on how to troubleshoot a particular issue, As that alarm is generated and sending a push notification through Squeaks from Ignition, you can automatically embed that media into the alarm so that your team members have tools they need to troubleshoot and be successful before they even get there. And again, streamline that process of resolution. And then lastly, you have time-based escalation rules that we touched on a little bit earlier, that again, you set these up within the UI. And what you're able to do is, let's say if a particular team is initially notified on a certain alarm, but maybe they're already busy and distracted working on another issue on the manufacturing floor. This can automatically escalate to that next level up to ensure that nothing slips through the cracks. And you want to make sure that, it is a closed loop type of communication as well. So diving into each of these aspects, what you'll see here is for the structured problem solving workflows, on the right-hand side, you'll see the Squeaks web application. And within that, you can see a card for a machine overcycle fault. And with that, you can see the action bar where you can say, got it. You can say that it was repaired. It has that workflow that, again, is completely customizable, that a user can easily walk through and document the steps that they took to resolve this issue and have that step-by-step guidance. And what you'll see here, in addition to that, is not only are the users able to interact with the workflows directly within the Squeaks applications, but also if you looked on the left-hand side, that overcycle fault is blinking. When the user took ownership on the right-hand side, that automatically wrote back to Ignition and sent that overcycle fault from a blinking state to a solid state. And that shows you that if you have different team members, for example, that are used to on the production floor, maybe they don't have mobile devices accessible to them. They're used to looking at the Ignition HMI in this case, in this use case, for example, they can get that feedback from Squeaks that somebody's on their way to help resolve that issue without having to have a mobile device and in the application that they're used to using. And on the right-hand side, you can see the users easily interacting with the workflow. Every action they take is properly documented with the user, any comments they have, as well as the timestamps that they took these actions, really building a digital trail of every action taken for each type of alarm and reducing that resolve process because they have a streamlined way to resolve those particular issues. Next is automatically embedding media. So in this case, we have, for example, a screw-on depth fault that's coming in. And what you'll be able to see here is they have troubleshooting guides from this customer use case that they're able to utilize within the Squeaks application automatically. So as that alarm is triggered in Ignition, they're able to automatically embed that troubleshooting guide into the notification. So again, before the team member even gets to the area of the alarm, they already have tools that they need on how to troubleshoot and to be successful and potentially resolve the issue faster because they have that information in advance. And lastly, you have your time-based escalation rules. So you can see in this example here from the use case, you have a machine overcycle fault. That machine overcycle fault maybe originally targeted the maintenance team. And let's say the maintenance team, is busy working on another issue. After 1 minute, it reminded the maintenance team essentially that, hey, there is a machine overcycle fault that's currently open and active. Somebody needs to take ownership of this. And in this case, for example, maybe after 2 minutes, still no one has responded to it, no one has resolved it, for example, then you're able to automatically notify that next level up, which is the maintenance supervisor team. Again, ensuring closed loop communication, ensuring nothing slips through the cracks. And as you see at the top, you also are able to set different severity levels. So maybe if a particular alarm has been active for too long or has been in a certain state for too long, it can mean that the severity of this particular type of alarm has increased from a level 1 to level 2 or to level 3, for example. And you're able to put an indicator for that on the alert itself to make users aware of the severity of the issue as well. Again, all in all, if you look at the timeline at the bottom, reducing that resolve process and reducing the downtime and reducing the cost as well.
So when events are managed in Squeaks, you're creating a new data set that you've never had before. Full record of what actually happened between alarm detection and resolution. So in the review process, there's really two ways that we're utilizing this data. The first is a digital trail, a complete time-stamped history of the event. And the second is gaining insights, reporting, and analytics for performance and improvement. So first, we'll start with the digital trail. As you can see on the screen here, it's scrolling through the history of every action that was taken. So you're able to begin and see who the actual event went to, at what time was the event triggered, and then what time stamp and who took accountability for the problem. You can also see as this scrolls through that it was escalated because it was down for more than 1 minute and the maintenance team was notified. So again, it's the idea from open to close. How do we make sure we have a step-by-step process to go through? And this digital trail you can then extract to review the data to look at performance, how the team's doing in general, and who else we can maybe pull into the problem resolution process. The second part of the review process is gain insights. So turning that captured history into performance reports that can be analyzed for your continuous improvement efforts. So there's really two ways that we're doing that. The first is out-of-box reports in the next release of SQUEAKS, and currently being able to extract the data into your own tools like Power BI. So the first way is our out-of-the-box option. Of course, reports can be tailored to your specific use case and needs, but these are just some examples for today's presentation. So this first example shows a built-in productivity report displaying total downtime and number of events. Next, this one's showing how team members are performing, giving you a clear view of their impact within the overall organization. And then lastly, this is an example showing how much time is spent across each step of the workflow within your group. Second is to review this new data set by extracting all of it into your own reporting tools. The one you see here is Power BI. And this is possible because SQUEAKS is a very open platform, allowing you to do that within your organization. So implementing SQUEAKS means the resolution process is no longer undocumented or based on memory. Every step is captured. The real data shortens the time to review events and make decisions faster, clearer, and more objective overall.
So the outcome of this use case from our customer and working closely with them on this is with combining SQUEAKS with Ignition, you're now in the know and in control. And because you are getting more information from the time the alarm was detected in Ignition to the time it is considered resolved, you're able to really have a better understanding of your mean time for response and your mean time to resolve. So you're able to respond faster because you're delivering real-time alerts across various different types of devices and platforms, but you're also providing them with workflows where they can easily respond and take ownership of particular issues or escalate if they're not responding within a given amount of time. You're then streamlining the communication and collaboration to fix and resolve the issue because you have that step-by-step guidance with the workflows that you've configured for the various different types of alarms. And again, bringing in those escalation rules where it can automatically escalate to that next level up, ensuring closed loop communication and nothing slips through the cracks, as well as the ability to attach and embed troubleshooting guides and various different media that can help your team members essentially solve problems faster, reduce downtime, and control the cost. And now you have this new historical data set that's coming with every single alarm of that in between of what was the response times, what did they do to resolve it, what were the timestamps of every action taken. And that new data set can really provide additional insight on and strengthen your accountability within your organization. So that can be reviewed, that new data set can be reviewed within SQUEAKS. It also can be extracted because SQUEAKS is a very open platform, can be extracted to other types of reporting tools. But essentially his goal is to drive continuous improvement, help you improve your mean time for response and your mean time to resolve. So Squeaks and Ignition work better together, with Squeaks being the critical event management platform, because you're able to know sooner and act faster. And Squeaks becomes your single source of truth for your problem resolution process. Now, as we've been going through this presentation, our customer success engineer, Sydney Wall, has been in the background looking through the questions that have been submitted. Thank you for submitting those questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Sydney to kind of go through about 3 or 4 different questions depending on time, and then she'll go through answering those as well.
Yeah, good morning. We got a couple good questions. So the first one is, can you bring others into the problem-solving resolution process that normally are not part of that team? And so, yes, you can. You can bring others in by adding a comment on a squeak and mentioning their username. That will actually send them a notification and will take them straight to that specific squeak so that they can jump in to help. The next question, what are some best practices for preventing notification overload and ensuring teams aren't overwhelmed by alerts? Yeah, so like Celine mentioned earlier, we can manage that by making sure people are only tuned into those sources, teams, and users that are going to be relevant to them. That way, every notification they get is meaningful and tied to what actually matters in their day-to-day work. Another question, how do you write back to Ignition based on events in Squeaks, such as someone taking action in a workflow? Yeah, so you can actually do that by using what we call connectors. So connectors in Squeaks will actually let you set parameters or listen for certain events. And when those events happen, you can trigger actions based on them. For example, in that demo that Celine showed, after she pressed that fault button on the HMI, it was blinking. Once she hit that got it in Squeaks, that button actually changed to that solid state to kind of show that end user that that squeak had been acknowledged. Then one last question, can users of Squeaks be tied to Active Directory users so logins are streamlined for users across all platforms? Yes, so you can actually tie your Squeaks users into your Active Directory accounts. That really does help streamline logins across platforms. You can also use existing user groups from your Active Directory to kind of manage that access and those permissions more easily. So if you all had any questions that you didn't ask, or if I didn't get to answer your question, we'll follow up with you, or if you can send those later. But I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to Brooks.
Thanks, Sydney. And thanks again for joining us today for our first session of our Better Together series with Ignition. Our next session is November 5th at 11:30 a.m., where we'll cover Unlock Factory Insights, no-code dashboards with Ignition and Squeaks. We'll send out today's recording soon, and we hope you join us for the next session. Thanks again, and have a great day.